네, 다시 한번 안내 말씀드리겠습니다. 잠시 후 2시부터 제1회 한국 선언주간 행사가 진행됩니다. 현장에 계시는 참석자 여러분들께서는 모두 자리에 착석해 주시기 바랍니다. 아울러 원활한 행사의 진행을 위해 소지하신 휴대폰은 진동이나 무음 모드로 전환해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 네, 본 행사는 코로나19 방역 수칙을 준수하며 진행되고 있습니다. 코로나19 확산 방지를 위해 행사장 내 마스크 착용을 지켜주시면 감사하겠습니다. 아울러 모든 기념식이 끝나고 난 뒤 안내 데스크에 별도의 기념품이 준비가 되어 있으니 잊지 않고 꼭 수령해 가시기 바랍니다. 출발하셨대요? 네, 여러분 지금 행사장으로 주요 내빈
Now, distinguished guests are entering the hall. Please give them a big round of applause.
네, 여러분 안녕하십니까?
Good afternoon. Nice to meet you. I am the MC for the first Korea Seafarers Week. Nice to meet you all.
네, 먼저
First of all, I would like to extend my gratitude for all our participants for taking time to be in the first Korea Seafarers Week ceremony. This event is held to celebrate the Day of the Seafarer designated by International Maritime Organization, which is designated to pay tribute to seafarers as a key player and to contribute to support seafarers in their efforts to shape the future of shipping and fishing industries. In today's event, we will have an award ceremony, invite senior seamen to share future insights, and have an in-depth discussion with experts from home and abroad. So from now on, let's begin the ceremony, which is titled Your Voyage Done and Now Share Your Journey. Now let's begin the first Korea Seafarers Week event. Please give a big round of applause.
네, 먼저 오늘 바쁘신
I would like to introduce you our distinguished guests. Please greet them with a big round of applause. We have Mr. Song Sang-gun, Vice Minister of Oceans and Fisheries.
다음으로
And we have President Lee Jong-han from Korea Seafarers Welfare and Employment Center.
전국
We have Vice Chairman Park Sung-yong from the Federation of Korean Seafarers Union. We have Korea Ship Shipping Association Chairman Lee Sung-won. We have Korea Overseas Fishery Association President, President of Korea Ship Managers Association, Mr. Kang Sung-geun. President of Kim Young-mo from Korea Ship Owners Association. Busan Port Authority, President Kang Jung-seok. Korea Oceans and Fisheries Research Institute, Mr. Kang Jung-seok. Busan Local Oceans and Fisheries Authority, Chairman Kang. Busan Maritime High School, President.
네, 오늘 학생들이 또
And we have many students from Maritime High School. And also we have the Dean of Incheon Maritime High School. Please give him a big round of applause. We have many more, but please understand that we cannot introduce everyone here with us due to time limit. Now, to kick off the event, we'll have an opening remarks from President Lee Jung-hwan of Korea Seafarers Welfare and Employment Center. Please greet him with a warm round of applause.
안녕하십니까.
Good afternoon. I am the president of Korea Seafarers Welfare and Employment Center. We are here to celebrate the first Korea Seafarers event 2022. I would like to thank and welcome all our distinguished guests from home and abroad. The center is contributing to improving the welfare of 70,000 seafarers. We are the only center for seafarers' welfare, and I'm very delighted to have this event on behalf of the Seafarer Welfare and Employment Center. And I would like to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Distinguished Vice Minister of Oceans and Fisheries and Vice Chairman of the Federation of Korean Seafarers Union, who came here on behalf of the chairman, and Mr. Kang, Chairman of Ship Managers Association, and Mr. Yoon, President of Korean Overseas Fisheries Association, and Mr. Kim, President of Korea Ship Owners Association, and Mr. Kang from Busan Port Authorities. Many distinguished guests who are working in the field of maritime industry here in Korea, I would like to extend my gratitude for the success of this event. Many distinguished guests from abroad are here. Secretary General of IMO and Hakon Skornhart from Norway Maritime Office, and Mr. Yasuhiro from Japanese Maritime Office, and Julie Carton from UK Maritime and Coastal Guard Authority. And I would like to extend my gratitude for participating in our international conference. Due to the COVID pandemic, our industry was struck hard. But in order to preserve our foothold in this industry, we set up a 5-year plan to further develop the maritime industry. And for the past several years, we have achieved fruitful results. We are currently standing at the world's 7th trading country, and we are the number 1 in shipping industry worldwide. While achieving such results, seafarers are playing a key role in doing so. And contributing to the world trade and Korean trade. Thanks to all your efforts, we could achieve these results. Distinguished guests from home and abroad, I hope that the first Korea Seafarers event will contribute to further development of the maritime industry of Korea and strengthen our industry. Myself and all my employees will do our best to make Korea as the maritime powerhouse. We will spare no effort to lay the foundation for that. Still now there are many seafarers who are at sea. I wish safe voyage and best luck. And I declare the opening of the first Korea Seafarers Week.
네, 힘찬 개배 선언으로 행사의 시작을
I would like to thank Mr. Jung-hwan Lee who declared the opening of the first Korea Seafarers Week event. Now we have a very special guest who came amid his busy schedule, the Vice Minister of Oceans and Fisheries, Mr. Song Sang-gun. Please give him a big round of applause. Nice to meet you, ladies and gentlemen. I am Vice Minister for Oceans and Fisheries, Song Sang-gun. The International Maritime Organization designated a Day of a Seafarer. I'm very delighted to have this event at the number one port of Korea and my hometown. On this meaningful day, the seafarers who are sparing no effort, we are going to have an award ceremony for those seafarers who spare no efforts. And I would like to extend my gratitude and congratulations. And I would also like to extend my gratitude for distinguished guests from home and abroad who made this event possible. And especially, I would like to thank Mr. Lee Jung-hwan. Today, we are going to have special guests here online and offline for this international conference, and I would like to extend my gratitude to distinguished guests from home and abroad and seafarers. Seafarers take up 99% of Korean trade and provide fishery, which is a basic necessity or food for Korean people. So seafarers are key players. While you are making efforts fighting big tides at sea, thanks to your efforts, we could become a maritime powerhouse standing at 7th in trade and 1st in shipping. But the current circumstances are difficult. Seafarers face loneliness and have to work far from their home. And there are many people who don't want to become a seafarer due to it's a difficult job. And the demographic of seafarers is getting old. In order to fill in the shortage of manpower, the ratio of foreign sailors are increasing. We set up a plan to further grow the shipping and maritime industry. The new policy task for the new administration, one of the policy tasks is to lead Korea to become a maritime powerhouse. And we are going to establish a stable system to support and provide needed manpower in this industry. And we are going to nurture the maritime professionals through educational and training institutes such as Maritime High School and so on. We are going to provide a quality training for maritime technicians so that we can fill in the HR shortage in this industry. We are going to expand the safety and health environment and working conditions of maritime professionals so that many people will join this industry. We are going to shorten the period on ship and support seafarers to work for a longer period of time in their life so that we can secure qualified maritime professionals. In addition, we are going to strengthen the safety and health measures on ship, improve the rest time system, and provide quality training and medical support. Third, we are going to support the life cycle of maritime professionals, and we are going to make it into a system by strengthening the education and training for maritime professionals. We will make sure to establish a system where we can support maritime professionals at one go. Distinguished guests from home and abroad and seafarers, I have mentioned the policy efforts that the administration is making so far, but the government effort is not sufficient. All the industry players need to make efforts and play their parts in order to improve the conditions of the industry. I hope that all of us here can make efforts so that we can open up a new future for the oceans and fishery industries. I call for your efforts. The government will also support your efforts. Once again, I extend my congratulations for the first Korea Seafarers Week. I hope that this event contribute to raising awareness on seafarer and give an opportunity to discuss the future of the oceans and fisheries. I hope this event serves as a meaningful event. And also, I would like to thank Mr. Lee Jung-hwan for hosting this event. And I also like to thank the support and sponsorship of many different institutes. I wish you health and happiness. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you, Vice Minister. Thank you for coming a long way and delivering meaningful remark. Let's give Vice Minister Song Sang-keun another big round of applause.
그럼 신해양 강국 건설의 첫걸음은 바로 여기 함께해 주신 선원 여러분들께 있다고 해도 과언이 아닙니다. 다음 축하 말씀은 영상 메시지로 준비가 되어 있는데요. 먼저 임기택 IMO 사무총장님의 축하 영상을 화면으로 준비해 봤습니다. 지금부터 함께 만나보시죠.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to address you on the occasion of the first Korea Seafarers Week. I'd like to express my deep appreciation to the government of Republic of Korea for providing a forum to celebrate the International Day of the Seafarers, raising awareness of seafarers and attracting young seafarers. After 2 years, the COVID-19 pandemic still presents a challenging working environment. Every day, hundreds of thousands of seafarers are underway on ships. Their ships are key movers of global trade and engines of the global economy, transporting cargoes such as food, raw materials, medicine, electronics, and more. New technologies, new equipment, and the need to make shipping greener will provide new challenges and opportunities. We must rise to these challenges and create a workforce to operate the green and digital ships of the future safely and securely. Shipping and with it, our seafarers lie at the heart of the global economy. I'm certain that this first Korea Seafarers Week will provide a platform for highlighting the important role of seafarers and for discussing ideas, contributions, and innovation to improve seafarers' welfare and working conditions, as well as effectively responding to the challenges but also opportunities for seafarers in the future. I wish you a successful Korea Seafarer Week. Thank you.
네, 뜻깊은 축하의 말씀 임기
Let's give Secretary General Im Gi-taek, who delivered congratulatory remarks through video message. Big round of applause once again. Next is also a video message from Chairman Jung Tae-gil from the Federation of Korean Seafarers Union.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jung Tae-gil from FKSU. I'd like to congratulate the opening of the first Korea Seafarers Week. In 2010, the IMO has designated June 25th as the Day of the Seafarers for those who contribute so much for their contribution and hard work. But for the last 3 years, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, many seafarers had to suffer. Many of the ports were shut down and access was limited. Therefore, Korea's seafarers were limited of their movement as well. There was chaos, and it has been really difficult to supply them with masks or vaccination at first. But we kept on requesting for such report, and we were able to address that issue in the end. This shows how it is difficult. It has been difficult for identifying the issues faced by seafarers. And this is due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We were able to reconfirm that reality. Now we're living with COVID-19. And seafarers are working in a very unique working condition. So they are faced with various limitations. Before COVID-19, they were able to enjoy the family visit, but because after COVID-19, this is not possible. So there remains complaints from seafarers, and we will do our best so that family visit can begin again. And I promise you that we will do our best to address many of the issues faced by you. Now is time to heighten the status of seafarers who, with so much effort and contributed to Korea's economy. They have been contributing the Korea's economic growth. In 1964, number of Korea's seafarers were just 28, but now we have 110,000, and they are working away from their family. And in the end, they were able to contribute to the economic development of Korea. They were able to earn $580 million, which is 5.8 times larger than the money earned by the Koreans dispatched to Germany. and seafarers handle 99.7% of the import and export cargoes. Now is the time to heighten the public awareness toward the seafarers. We have to revise the Seafarers Act and legalize the day of the seafarer. Today, we will have various discussions and presentations, and through such discussion, I wish we can contribute to the heightened public awareness toward the seafarers. We will have to improve the safety, health, and welfare and well-being of seafarers. Seafarers are working very hard, fighting very unique working conditions, and understanding such hardship is, I think, it's really important part of new government, and I think that should be the priority because seafarers contributed to the development of Korea's economy. Once again, I'd like to congratulate the opening of the Korea Seafarers Week, and I would like to congratulate and thank all the winners of the awards today. And lastly, I would like to wish for the safety of the seafarers who are on the ocean. Thank you very much. Please give him a big round of applause. So he mentioned how he was thankful to the seafarers. And now is a time for the award ceremony. Whenever I call out the name of the winners, please give them a big round of applause. And when the award ceremony is over, we will have a group photo. I believe many of you will have brought a lot of bouquet of flowers. You can take individual pictures later. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Song Sang-gun, the Vice Minister of Minister of Oceans and Fisheries. Please welcome him with a big round of applause. Now let me call out the names of the winners. Mr. Lee Jung-bong from Korea Line Corporation, and Mr. Ha Kwang from SM Line, and Han Do-sun from SM Line, and Mr. Chung Jae-young from Korea Line Corporation, and Mr. Go Young-hoon, Mr. Park Il-dae, Mr. Shin Hyun-jae, Mr. Park Ju-han, Mr. Im Hak-young, and Mr. Chung Ju-hun. Please come up to the stage. So for those who cannot be here today because they are on the ship, family members will be here instead. Mr. Lee Jung-bong from Korea Line Corporation. We give you this award for your hard work and contribution. June 23rd, 2022. And now we're delivering the award and the bouquet of flower. Next award goes to Mr. Ha Kwang from KSS Line. Congratulations. And Mr. Han Do-sun from SM Line. Congratulations once again. He wasn't able to come to the event, so the family member came instead. And Mr. Chung Jae-young from the Korea Line Corporation. Congratulations once again. Next, Mr. Go Young-hoon from SK Shipping. Congratulations. Next, Mr. Park Il-dae from Kumyong Fisheries. Congratulations. we have Mr. Shin Hyun-jae from Sajo Industries. Congratulations. We will keep on providing the awards. Next is Mr. Park Ju-han from Alpha Maritime. Next is Mr. Im Hak-young from SJ Tanker. Congratulations. And last but not least, Mr. Jung Ju-hyun from Boryong Shipping. Congratulations. Once again, congratulations to everyone, and we will take a group photo. So please come up to the stage, and we will take a group photo together with the Vice Minister. So these are the winners for those who contributed most to the industry. So please give them a big round of applause. Congratulations. And please give Vice Minister Song Sang-kun a big round of applause once again. And we will move on to the next award ceremony, which is award is given to the relevant institutions and organizations. When I call out the names of the winner, please give them a big round of applause. And I would like to call out the FKSU, Korea Ship Owners Association, Korea Overseas Fishers Association, Korea Shipping Association, and Korea Ship Managers Association to the stage. Please welcome them to the stage. We have the leaders of 5 organizations on the stage, and each of the organizations will call out their winners. And the winners who weren't able to attend today because they're on the vessel, and the family member will attend instead. Can we have Mr. Park Sung-yong from FKSU? Let's call out the winners. Mr. Cho Jang-won, please come up to the stage. Mr. Lee Min-yong, you are awarded with this award because of your big contribution, and we give you this award celebrating the first Korea Seafarers Week. Congratulations. Next, the winner is Cho Jang-hun. Congratulations. We will deliver the award as well as a bouquet of flower. Let's take a group photo together. So please give them a big round of applause. Let's commemorate this precious moment. Let me move on to the next award. I'd like to call out Mr. Kim Young-moo from the Korea Shipping Association. Mr. Chang Bo-gin from Changgeum Lines, and Mr. Kang Ju-tae from Pan Ocean. Please come up to the stage. Mr. Kim Young-moo from Korea Ship Owners Association will give out the award. Mr. Chang Bok-in, we give you this award for your big contribution and hard work. June 23rd, 2022. Congratulations. Next, the winner is Mr. Kang Ju-tae from Pen Ocean. Congratulations. Please give them a big round of applause. So we'll take a group photo together with the winners as well as the presenter, Mr. Kim Young-moo. Please spread your award so that it can be seen in the photo. We have so many people here today, and you can give them your flower after the group photo. Next, we will move on to the next award. Next, Mr. Ko Sang-won, President Ko Sang-won, will come up to present the award. The winner is Lee Hee-gyun from Sangyong CNC and Mr. Kang Jong-muk from Seafarers Maritime. Award from the Korea Shipping Association. The winner is Lee Hee-gyun. We give you this award recognizing your hard work and contribution. June 23rd, 2022. Congratulations. Next award goes to Mr. Kang Jong-muk from Seafarers Marine. President Ko Sang-won presented the award to both of the winners. Now we will take a group photo. Please look toward the camera right in front of you. Please give them a big round of applause. Next award is from the Korea Ship Managers Association. We'll have President Kang Soo-il on the stage. I'll call out the winners. Mr. Park Tae-sik from NDSM and Mr. Kim Sung-hwa from G Marine Service. Please welcome them with a big round of applause. This award is presented by the Korea Ship Managers Association, and President Kang Soo-il will present the award. This award is given to Mr. Park Tae-sik, who contributed a lot to the industry. June 23rd, 2022. Congratulations. Is presenting the award and the bouquet of flower. And next award goes to Mr. Kim Sung-hwa from G Marine Service. Congratulations once again. Please give them a big round of applause. And we will take a group photo together with the winners as well as the President Kang Soo-il. Please give them a big round of applause once again. And lastly, I'd like to ask Mr. President Yoon Young-gil to come up to the stage. So let me call out the winners. Kim Kwang-yul from Gyeongyang Fisheries and Mr. Baek Young-chil from Kosak Trade. As I said earlier, if the winner could not be here, we asked the family members to come instead. The winner is Mr. Kim Kwang-yul from Gyeongyang Fisheries. We give you this award recognizing your contribution and hard work. June 23rd, 2022. The award is presented by the Korea Overseas Fisheries Association. And next, we'll call out another winner, Mr. Baek Young-chil from Kosak Trading. Congratulations once again. So President Yoon Young-gil of the Korea Overseas Fisheries Association presented the awards to the winners. We'll take a group photo together. Today's very meaningful. Why don't we give a big round of applause once again to all the winners as well as the leaders of the organizations who presented the awards today. Please give them a big hand once again. Well, once again, thank you so much for your hard work and contribution. Because of your work, I think the industry was able to develop, and we'll have a group photo together. We will take a group photo first. So all the distinguished guests, please come up to the stage.
(2022년) 제1회 한국
Celebrating the first Korea Seafarers Week, we have so many distinguished guests here today. We will have a group photo together. And once again, thank you so much for your participation. We will take a group photo like this, and because we have so many people joining us online, we will take another picture with them. So let's call out fighting together.
잠시 뒷 배경을 오픈하도록 하겠습니다. 지금 온라인으로도 많은 분들께서 함께 해주고 계시거든요. 손인사 부탁드립니다. 제 목소리 들리시죠? 네, 손인사 부탁드립니다. 네, 온라인으로 참석하신 참석자분들과도 함께 기념사진 촬영 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 내빈 여러분들께서는 전면을 봐주시고요. 똑같이 하나 둘 셋 하면 화이팅 외치겠습니다. 하나 둘 셋. 네, 우리나라 해운시설업의 미래를 책임질 선원 여러분들을 응원합니다. 함께해 주신 내배기빈 여러분들께 다시 한번 뜨거운 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 네, 뜻깊은 공식 행사를 마치고 잠시 장례 정리 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다. 5분 후에 바로
We'll have a short break for about 5 minutes, and then we'll move on to session 1. Thank you very much.
네, 오늘 많은 분들께서 이렇게 축하해 주시기 위해서 함께 자리해 주셨는데요.
We have many participants who came here to celebrate the first Korea Seafarers Week. After 3 minutes, we will begin the presentation session. You may take a commemorative photo with your family on stage. When we begin the presentation session, please come to the front and take your seat.
네, 잠시 후부터 세션을 시작하도록 하겠습니다.
In a moment, we will begin the presentation session for the first Korea Seafarers Week. I ask you to come to the front and be seated. You will be able to listen to the presentation from a closer place.
네, 그럼 지금부터 제1회 한국 선언주간 세션 발표를
From now on, we will begin a presentation session. The theme of session 1 is Seafarers Journey, and we have prepared 3 presentations. The first presentation is titled My Journey as a Captain. We have Captain Jung Hwan-seok from Dongwon Industries. Please give him a big round of applause. Good afternoon. I am Jung Hwan-seok, Captain of Dongwon Industries.
먼저
First of all, I'm very honored to be the first speaker for the presentation session of the Korea Seafarers Week. I'm very delighted to have this event in Korea, and I hope to see more maritime policies to be developed and applied to the industry. I have been at sea and working at deep sea industry for 26 years. As spending 16 years as captain, I have caught tuna amounting to 145,000 tons. and reached astounding economic results out of this. Last year, I received an award for contributing to the Korean economy, and I received a presidential award. Please give me a big round of applause. It's a precious souvenir for my family. I wanted to bring that medal to show you, but I have here the watch that is given by the president to show you. While working as a captain, I contributed to tuna export industry. I was very delighted to get respect from the family, not only my family, but also from the country. I guess you are familiar with seeing tuna cans at supermarket. Please remember me whenever you see those tuna cans. The deep sea industry has contributed to the Korean economy, and many senior captains, with all their sacrifice, open up a brighter future for the juniors like me. Like so, deep sea industry has contributed to earning foreign currencies and driving Korean economy. But the recognition on seafarers are still underappreciated. We need to shed a new light on the deep sea industry and enhance the perception on this industry so that we can raise the awareness on seafarers. After spending 1 year at sea, I came to Korea in February this year, and I'm enjoying a much-awaited vacation. On the ground, we work for 1 year and take several months as vacation, but there is no other profession that allows this long vacation. We spend several months as a vacation, but after spending the vacation and going back to work, for other professionals, they might be fired. But after spending 1 year at sea, then we can enjoy much-awaited vacation for several months. And I'm very proud of my profession. And this is the bright side of my profession, I think. I hope that many next generation talents will be attracted by this aspect. This event is broadcasted via YouTube, and many online participants will be watching us. And there might be next generation maritime technicians who are waiting to work for the oceans and fishery industries. In the news coverage or media coverage, they sometimes report the annual salary of deep sea captain, and they also mention that our salary is around 1 billion Korean won. You might have seen that. If you search my name, Jung Hwan-seok, on the internet, or Captain Jung Hwan-seok, and you will be able to know several facts about me. I was the cover person for a journal as a seaman, and I also wrote an article for a news agency expressing my opinion on the deep sea industry. The people were very keen to know about my salary, and I have exposed that information as well. As you can see, I joined the 1 billion salary club. Once again, big hand, please. Thank you. From outside is a very attractive job, but behind the scene, we need to spend a lot of lonely and difficult time. You should know that. But the job is valuable. For that, we need to make a lot of efforts and endure. And I hope to see a different policy direction from governments. And you need to take a different approach to support this industry. If you're willing to work for deep sea industries, I advise that this is a very attractive job, but you should be willing to do so with hard work. There is no job that is easy, but one of the difficult jobs in Korea is deep sea seafarers. We receive a lot of salary and our wage is high, but please remember that there are hard work and efforts made by us. I know many maritime technicians who are working in difficult situations, but with dedication for their job, recovering all the difficulties they face. And I saw a lot of them being promoted to captain and maritime pilot. I hope to see more of the next generation maritime professionals. Most recently, due to the Russia and Ukraine war, the price of staples is soaring and the inflation is high. The deep sea industry where we work right now is not just cutting fish. The deep sea industry is laying for the foundation for the Korean people to secure their livelihood, such as staples. For all the seafarers who are working in this industry, is playing an important role for supplying fish across the globe. Together with the growth of Korean industry, the fishery industry and deep sea industry is growing fast. And this industry needs good talent so that we can sustain this industry to further develop. Therefore, in order to maintain the strength of deep sea industry, I think the government policy support is essential. For example, the demographic of deep sea professional is getting old. This is a chronic issue of this industry. But there is no practical solution suggested to solve this issue. That's our reality. To maintain quality talent and to attract more next generation professionals, we need to have a government policy that goes hand in hand with the current situations. Korea is a small peninsula, but ranks one of the top 5 deep sea industry countries. So far, we have made a lot of efforts to achieve that. In order to further strengthen Korea in this industry, we need to have differentiated policy approach. Even now, many people are paying a lot of attention in this industry. I know that you are making efforts to provide good policy, but we need to take a practical approach. So I ask for your policy support for this industry. I hope that everyone pay more attention in the development of deep sea industry. And I hope to see more young generation maritime professionals join this industry as well. I wish you best and good luck. Thank you.
네, 멋진 발표 잘 들었습니다.
Thank you so much. That was Mr. Jung Hwan Sung, and he shared his vision for the next generation. Please give him a big round of applause. So session one, we have three presenters, and we just had presentation from Jung Hwan Sung, and let me introduce you the second presenter, Mr. Song Hyung-jun, a pilot from Ulsan Port. Please give him a big round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Song Hyung-jun, a pilot working at Ulsan Port. It's an honor for me to be here and speak in front of you. Today, I would like to talk about becoming a pilot without maritime academic background. The biggest reason why I'm here is because I didn't graduate from Maritime University. So today, I would like to tell you how I became a pilot without maritime academic background and briefly talk about the vision of the job. As you can see from my background, I studied law, and then after graduation, I worked at regular job. And in 2022, I got into the maritime technician, the Ocean Polytech institution, and after that I worked on the vessel as on lines, shipping lines, and I also worked at a maritime related government agency, and currently I'm working as a pilot at Ulsan Port. I studied at Ocean Polytech. It used to be called as the Korea Institute of Maritime and Fisheries Technology. And if you research the Ocean Polytech, it explains that it is for those who do not have maritime academic background, who did not graduate from maritime universities. And after you get certificate, graduate and certificate from this university, you will be able to work on ships. So it took about 2 years to get the certificate. Because we have the internet and the competition to land a job on land is very high. So that's why I heard that so many people are applying for this program, and actually there are many people asking me that they want their children to get into this program. And after I got the certificate as a maritime technician, I started working as a maritime technician, and I was 30 years old. So I was kind of a latecomer because the average age coming from the maritime university was 24 years old. So at first it was difficult But because I am a latecomer, I did my best and I did my best at work as well. And I was given various opportunities. I got a job in Singapore and worked as a port captain there. That was a good experience for me, but I had to work overseas more than 200 days. It was I that was a good opportunity, but I missed my times on ocean, so I went back on board. The thing is that when I work on land, I want to go on board, and when I'm on board, want to get I want to work on land. So when I'm on land, I wasn't earning as much as money I was then I was on the ship. And while I was working, I was asked to try and aim as a pilot. And I calculated. So I was on board until 2020, and then I've been to 40 different countries, and based on that background, I was able to selected as a pilot. I believe my experience working on board is not really different from others, but some people ask me question because I don't have this maritime academic background. I think my secret is studying English. One time I dreamt in English. I studied English very hard, and then I was able to become a pilot. I think English helped me a lot, and many people were curious whether there's any discrimination against people without the academic background. But when I was working, there was, but things have changed a lot. So the performance right now is more important than the background. So even if you do not have the maritime academic background, you won't get the discrimination. And lastly, I'll talk about the vision and attractiveness of Seafarer. So the sea, as soon as they finish their military mandatory service period, they stop their job because these days it is less attractive than it used to be. However, it has a lot of benefits in terms of military, and promotion is pretty fast, and there's no limitation in age, so you can work this job uh, for a long time. And internet is viable on board, so you can do the social networking. You can use social networking services. So it seems kind of perfect job. But of course, there are disadvantages. Compared to the European seafarers, many of the seafarers are working short term. However, there are more regular jobs, and if we are able to improve just a little bit of the well being and the working conditions for seafarers, I think the job will be more attractive. Some people say that there's no vision for the job. And recently, at Ulsan port, they're testing fully automated vessels. But if we think about the automation, there will be no promising job in the future. But think about this, maritime industry and shipping is a crucial part of nation's industry. And more than 90% of the trade is handled by seafarers and shipping. So I believe the vision of seafarer is still very bright. And without seafarers, there's no future for the industry. Well, we are the asset for Korea. So I think we should feel more proud of our job. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. Thank you. So please give him a big round of applause.
As a non-maritime university graduate, I could see that there have been a lot of challenge, and I think his presentation was very inspiring to the young professionals. Please give him another big hand. We are here with many high school students from Maritime High School, and I hope that the tips from the seniors are very helpful for you. The last presentation of session 1 is titled Advice for Next Generation Marine Professionals. Chairman Choi Yong-ho from Green Maritime will deliver the presentation. Please greet him with a big hand. Nice to meet you all. I am Choi Yong-ho from Green Maritime. We are celebrating the first Korea Seafarers Week, and I'm the third speaker for this event, and I'm greatly honored. The two previous speakers shared good comments. As a senior of all of you, I wanted to share my past experience of mine. I'm running the company called Green Maritime. Green Maritime owns 14 vessels and manage 14 vessels. We have 4 LNG tankers and 10 tankers. And I also run Green SM. And Green SM possesses 14 vessels, all chemical tankers, and 4 others. And Green Trading Korea export marine equipment and manufacture those marine equipment as well. I run these 3 companies. While doing so, I had to purchase and operate vessels and manage crew and supply marine equipment and provide marine consulting. That was a brief overview of my companies. In 1980, I graduated from Busan Maritime High School, and I worked in the field. Back in my days, the livelihood was really difficult. So we had to work right after graduating from high school. Just like my colleagues back then, my family was not well off, so I decided to enter a marine science high school. And based on my past background, I had to work in this field.
여러 가지 그 학교를 다니면서
But
회의도
while
느꼈고 좀 더
working
나은
for
거를 위해서 많은 사람들이
studying at high
있었지만
school,
뒤에
I
제가
felt a
대학을
lot of
나와서 유학을
difficulties,
가고 또
but
여러 가지 좋은 일이
many people
있었습니다.
recommended me to
결국
go to
그래서
college.
졸업과 동시에
But right
임박하게
after
된 시작이었습니다.
graduating the high school, I went
여러분들도
right
학교
away to the
다니면서
field.
도중에 시습을 가지 않습니까?
I know
예를
that
들어
currently many
우리
students
당시에
are doing a practical training.
4학년 때 실습을 나갑니다. 실습을
During my
나가면
senior year, I
상황 시험
also
준비를
had a
하거든요.
probation period. I couldn't receive any classroom lectures due to those practical training.
졸업을 하게 됩니다.
I wasn't at school during the senior year,
나는
and after that, I
선전을
graduated.
하게 됩니다. 지금은 여러분들 굉장히 그 환경이
I know
좋아져가지고
that current
애들
situation is different and changed for better.
또 승진할 기회가 많아졌습니다.
And I know that you have many opportunities to go on board, but back then it was really difficult to become a seafarer because the number of ships
그래서 당시에
was
다
limited.
편의가 좀 어렵다는 거 아시죠?
You know that
근데
boarding on a chemical tanker is very challenging,
기회가 있습니다.
but
그래서
rare opportunity led me to work for a chemical tanker.
98년도까지
Until 1998, for 18 years, I worked as a seafarer. So right after graduating the high school, I spent 18 years at sea.
또 지금 여러분도 마찬가지로 똑같이
Just as all of you,
승진하고
I went to the sea on a ship.
또 이렇게
I had to pass the test for promotion.
대학원학교를 나오면 5급을 가지고 5급
After graduating from Korea Maritime University, I could work as a grade 5 seafarer, but it took me 9 years to become the chief mate.
이렇게 진급해 가면서
And in order to become the chief officer, we need to go through junior officer stage.
고등학교 졸업하고 우리가 24살 되었을 때 저는
When
1등한 됐습니다.
I became the chief officer at 24
경험이
years old.
경력이 많은 메리트가 있어서
Because I worked as a chemical tanker, I could be promoted quickly than others.
하고 나서
After becoming the chief officer at 24, I became a captain.
할 때 아직 뭐 조금 여러분들은 좀 군대 갔다 오고 이런 낯선 와중이고 30대 가고
After serving the military service, we almost become 30, but 30-year-old captain was called very young, so my nickname was Young Captain.
98년도까지 제가
I've mentioned that I worked until 1998
당시에 제가
at sea, and I spent 7 years as a captain. At that time, the ship owner was Japanese,
회사에 와서 돈 벌고
and he recommended to enter his company.
또 한국에 계시는 예능 회사에 여러 설명이
And many seniors working in this field in Korea mentioned that it's a good opportunity, so I went to Japan to work in 1998.
굉장히 열심히 했습니다.
After going to Japan, I worked really hard.
일본어 공부 조금 했습니다.
I had to study Japanese language, but not fluent.
그것을 극복하는 데 시간이 좀 걸렸습니다.
So it took me some time to overcome the language barrier.
건조함도 또
But
거쳐서
I worked as a ship inspector, navigation inspector in Japan, and accumulated a lot of experience there.
한 7년 근무를 했으니까
I worked for 7 years there, and my Japanese skills got better.
굉장한 스타가 빛이 되었습니다.
And that became a good foundation for me to run my own business.
그리고 여러분들도 이제 앞으로 당연히 거치게 될 과정이겠지만
The journey in your career will be same or similar, But while working for 18 years at sea,
길어도 돼 있지만
I became a little bit
사정들이 따라
fatigued
떨어져서 살잖아요.
because I had to live
다른
away from
분들은
my
좀 넉넉하게
family,
살아갈 수 있어요.
and my
그리고
family
저는
had
7년 동안
difficulties
일본에서
due to
세계여행을
that.
했습니다.
And I spent
아까
7 years in
세컨드라고
Japan, and I
말씀드렸잖아요.
was
그래서
again away from my
오시아니아를
family.
굉장히 가족 들어가는데 어려우시지 않을까
That was a
저는
very difficult time for my family because we were departed,
또
and I
자식들을
was really
생각해서
lonely during that
아버지한테
time.
오시아니아에
And for my
시집보냈습니다.
children, I
한국으로
couldn't
돌아오고
stay near to
그
them, so I had to
시즌
come
때였습니다.
back to Korea.
한국에 돌아와서 이제
After coming back to
아까
Korea,
사전에 말씀드렸던 그린 트리닝이라는 회사를
I
창설하게 됩니다. 물론 사업가라는 뭐 좋은
created
건
a company
아니죠.
called Green Trading Korea.
그린 트리닝 코리아를 사업을 하려면
After incorporating Green Trading Korea,
20만 원 월세를 주는
I
조그마한 사업을
paid monthly rent of 200,000 won and established an office at 장승포.
물론 뭐
약하니까 짜더라도 이렇게 직원이 필요 없어서
At the time, I didn't need many employees, so at Green Trading Korea, we only had myself and one other colleague.
숙박에 서정품을 납품하는
And we supply
서정품 납품하면서
ship or vessel articles.
케미칼 탱커에 대한 노하우가 있고
We had chemical tanker know-how, and many Japanese knew that I had past experience working at chemical tanker. So they requested me to work as an inspector for shipbuilding. So at the time, the maritime industry was booming. So I worked as an inspector for 3 Korean shipbuilding field. And Ulsan port is famous for the port for chemical tankers. So I visited the site to give the training for Japanese chemical tankers. While doing so, the Japanese ship owner recommended me to manage their vessel because they kept close eye on my past experience, and they mentioned that I'm qualified to inspect the chemical tankers, and that's why I started green maritime business. While accumulating experience in this field, we could increase the number of ships we own, we manage. And Japanese ship owner contacted me that they are willing to sell one of their outdated ship to me, and based on that, we established a Green SM company, Green SM, which is a ship owning company. Now we own and manage 4 of our own ships and manage 28 vessels. So far, I had many challenges and ups and downs. I have my own children, and I recommended them to go to Marine Science High School and Maritime University. He is a graduate, and he spent 6 years at sea, and he became the chief officer, and he is completed 3-year training in Japan and currently came back to Korea working in my company. That was my past experience. I'm not sure whether you're interested in it, but as you are well aware, the industry is going through a lot of changes. The
뭐 뎁도
ships
이러다
are using
AI가
eco-friendly fuel and adapting AI technologies.
일생까지 등장한다고 합니다.
And people are saying that
그래서
soon the
선박이 필요한
autonomous
것은 당연하고
vessel
이어져서
will be developed.
앞으로
But seafarer
그
will always
이런
be an important
상황이
element in
어떻게
this
마무리하게
industry
되어서 정말 물선이 다 다닐지
because we cannot
모르겠습니다만 아주 영원하다고
expect
생각합니다.
autonomous vessels
저는
to
이해가
be
안
at
되는
sea alone.
어마어마한 메리트가 있는 것이고
So I think
지금
this industry is very promising still.
운송수단 미래부터 지금까지 우리가 알고 있는 뭐 시제에서 운송수단으로
One
가장
of the
경제적인
most
것이
economical transportation mode is shipping.
운전하고 아까 설명하신 대로
It has always
99.3%가
been like
선박으로
so.
운송한다고 하지
As
않습니까?
previously mentioned,
한국이나 서해와
99.7% of the trade volume is
그래서
delivered by shipping.
바다가 선박은
As
영원한
far as there is
것입니다.
sea,
여러분들한테
this industry
선박은
will always be
항상
promising.
선박은
The shipping
그렇죠.
industry and
어떻게 보면 자동차가
the
그렇다고
maritime
얘기하지만
industry is
자동차가
a
훨씬 더 속도가
all-round
거대하고
business.
선박은 대단한 포탈수라고 해요. 그리고 여러분들이 선선하게 되면
When you work as a seafarer,
고대한 육대지를
you will be able to travel
않습니까?
around the
우리가
world,
책으로 보고 말로
be at five
듣고
oceans and six continents.
물론 중요하지만
Getting
직접
secondhand
현장에 가서
experience through reading
방문해서
book is
눈으로
good, of
보고
course, but
확인을 한다면
actually
훨씬
visiting there, we will be able to
여러분들의
get
양식에
better
어마어마한
experience.
저도 약 18년 타면서
While working as a
고대한 육대지를
seafarer
바다가
for
있는
18 years, I visited every corner of the globe.
바다가 있는 나라들 가면
Every country that I
바다
see
주변
nearby
하나하나
them.
곳에서 우리가
At Port City,
주방하는 식으로 볼 수도 있지만 그 나라의
when we travel as a tourist, we don't have enough time to experience the country, but as a seafarer, you can get a real experience there. Everyone mentioned that the port city is a beautiful place, but when you go there, you will realize that the city condition is not that, port condition is not that good.
돈도 벌고
You will be able to earn money and visit the country
세상에 비해서
and get good experience, and you will be able to have all that.
바다는 우리가 생각하는 만큼 빨리 문제가 생기지 않더라고.
I think as far as there is
바다는
sea,
운송수단을 가진
this
선박은
industry
경제적인
will
면에서
boom
더 이상의 운송
because there is no other mode of transport that is more economical and efficient than shipping.
끝으로 여러분들한테
Lastly,
고 대우의 김우중 회장님의 말씀.
the late chairman Kim Woo-jung from Daewoo Industry mentioned once this famous comment that the world is big and there are a lot to do.
세상은 넓고
I
하늘은 많습니다.
want to say the same thing. The world is so big and there are so many things you can enjoy. In this industry, if you become one of the workers working here, you will be able to enjoy a lot of opportunities. You will be able to accumulate know-how
선박과 관련된
and
방법에서
develop your career not only in this field but also in the surrounding industries as well.
성과를 거둘 수 있으리라고 생각합니다. 앞으로 선생생활을 하시고
While working as a seafarer and
미래에 대한 비전,
growing your career,
이 넓은 세상을
I hope that you
기원합니다.
grow further. Thank you.
네,
Thank you for your presentation. So far it was Mr. Choi Yong-ho from Green Maritime. Please give him another big round of applause. He mentioned that the shipping industry is an all-round industry, and he mentioned the famous comment from the late chairman of Daewoo, which is the world is big and there's a lot to do. This is the end of session 1. We will take 5-minute break before we begin session 2. I would like to thank all the speakers, and we have some refreshments here in the conference hall. So after 5 minutes, we'll begin the session 2.
네, 잠시 후부터 두 번째 세션을 시작하도록 하겠습니다.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will soon begin our next session, so please come inside and take a seat.
네, 지금부터 두 번째
Ladies and gentlemen, we will soon begin session 2 of the day. We have the presentation as well as a discussion. We will have two presentations followed by the discussion. Let me introduce Mr. Yasuhiro Urano, Director of International Affairs of Seafarers Policy Division at Maritime Bureau.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Yasuhiro Urano from Ministry of Land Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism of Japan. First of all, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to the Secretariat of the First Korea Seafarers Week 2022 and the Government of the Republic of Korea for inviting me to this event. It is my great honor to have an opportunity to introduce the major amendments to Japan's Seafarers Act, which has just recently entered into force. There are challenges for seafarers on coastal vessels, such as the shortage and the aging of seafarers, and increased recruiting competition with land transport. Considering these challenges and the background, MLIT has discussed a possible reform of seafarers' working practices with experts for about 2 years. As a result of the discussion, MLIT decided to reform the national systems by the revision of the Seafarers Act and other relevant instruments. Today, I will focus on the amendments to the Seafarers Act only, considering the time limitation. So, what will be changed by the amendments to the Seafarers Act? There are 4 important areas of the reform. First, labor management system. Second, measures to manage and record working hours. Third, scope of working hours. Last, ensuring effectiveness of the reform. Most amendments have entered into force in April this year, but some amendments will enter into force in April next year to give the stakeholders sufficient time for preparation. I will explain the details of each area in order. First area is on the labor management system. In the former mechanism of labor management, the responsibilities of the ship owner for the management are not necessarily clear. In addition, most companies can get the status of seafarers' working hours based on onboard record books, but cannot timely confirm long working hours and deteriorating health of seafarers due to infrequent check of the record. And unfortunately, improper records of working hours in onboard record books have also been identified. In order to address these problems, we decided to properly reform the system by clarifying the responsibility of the ship owner for properly managing seafarers' working hours, requiring ship owner to appoint the labor management control officer at an onshore office. Then, considering measures to record working hours in electronic form, and revising the model format of onboard record book. Regarding the responsibility of the ship owner, it has been clarified that the ship owner has responsibility for managing seafarers' working hours. In detail, the ship owner has 7 roles. First, appoint the Labor Management Control Officer, LMCO in short. Second, assist the LMCO in obtaining and enhancing necessary knowledge. Third, keep the labor management record book. Fourth, issue a copy of labor management record book to seafarers. And most importantly, to get the status of seafarers' working hours. I will explain items 6 and 7 in detail in the latter slides. The Labor Management Control Officer has a role to carry out 4 control measures. First, to prepare and keep the labor management record book. Second, to get the status of seafarers' working hours. Third, understand the health conditions of seafarers. Fourth, provide consultation for seafarers on their working life. Then, the LMCO will advise the ship owner if it is necessary for the ship owner to take actions such as reduce working hours in consideration of the working hours, health conditions, and other status of seafarers. As I explained in the previous slide, the ship owner will take necessary actions considering the advice by the LMCO. You can see the list of major actions to be taken by the ship owner, such as reducing the working hours, change the working contents, and train the seafarer. If the seafarer is not or may not be in good health, the ship owner has to seek advice from a physician for taking proper actions. Furthermore, there will be a case where the operation plan should be reviewed in addition to the actions taken by the ship owner. In such a case, the operator is responsible for taking measures to prevent overworking of seafarers, respecting the advice of the ship owner. So the close communications between the ship owner and the operator are quite essential for that case. In the case of dispatching a seafarer, both of the client and dispatching ship owners are required to respectively and properly conduct labor management of seafarers. Close liaison and coordination among both LMCOs are recommended in that case. For the client ship owner, necessary actions it can take are limited to changing the work schedule and the work contents. The second reform is about measures to manage and record working hours. Measures to get the status of working hours were clarified by the reform. The new provisions provide objective ways to record working hours. In detail, record the start and end time as well as the type of work based on objective records and reports by using a computer, punching a time card, etc. Or the master, etc. confirms the actual status of the seafarer and records his or her working hours. In an exceptional case where the seafarer can't help but self-declare the status of working hours, the ship owner should adequately explain such conditions to LMCO, the master, and seafarers, and investigate the actual circumstances if there is a difference between the declared information and objective records, and if the master corrects the declared information, maintain a history of such corrections. MRIT issued a guidance on the above contents, and the guideline is already applied from April this year. The third reform area is the scope of working hours. Taking into account the special characteristics of the maritime labor and in compliance with Maritime Labor Convention 2006, the Seafarers Act prescribes normal hours of working as 8 hours per day and 40 hours per week, and maximum hours of working as 14 hours per day and 72 hours per week. As you see below, 24 hours of one day are all allocated to work and rest on board a ship, unlike the practices of land workers. The previous system of seafarers' working hours have some problems. It has not been determined in a uniform manner whether various activities on board a ship where seafarers work and live can be treated as those within their working hours. Drills, handover, etc. have been outside the scope of maximum working hours and treated as exceptional cases of the system. For example, the payment of a premium allowance for those activities is exceptionally exempted. Therefore, MLIT issued a guideline to clarify the scope of working hours. The guideline is already applied from April this year. Seafarers' working hours were defined as time for seafarers to engage in activities necessary in the course of their duties. For seafarers other than the master, working hours are limited to time for them to engage in activities following orders by supervisors in the course of their duties. In addition, the criteria were established for deciding if a specific work can be recorded as working hours. Those who record working hours should individually and specifically assess the applicability of an activity to the above scope, taking into account whether the activity can be a part of duties or not, and whether the seafarer must engage in the activity or not, and level of responsibility for that mandate. Next, I will explain the review of exceptions for regulating working hours. Before the reform of the system, fire drills, etc., and replacement of a seafarer in charge of the navigational watch are treated as exceptions for regulating working hours, as shown in red color on the left sidebar. After the reform, these tasks are moved into the category of expected works when there is a special necessity. Since the scope of working hours becomes wider within maximum hours of working per day, there will be a case where it is necessary to change the operation plan to comply with the regulation of working hours. Please note that this new system will start from April next year to give the stakeholders sufficient time for preparation. The fourth and final area is about ensuring effectiveness of the reform. The system of labor audit for seafarers was reviewed and changed as a part of the reform. MLIT has so far carried out two types of labor audit. One is the audit for conditions of safety and health management on board a ship by visiting the ship. The second one is the audit for labor management of seafarers. From April this year, MLIT started to conduct the audit for labor management of seafarers by visiting the main office for labor management. MLIT may confirm the violation of the Seafarers Act through these audits. In the case the violation was caused by the operation plan, MLIT will conduct an audit for operation control against the operator. Thank you for your kind attention. If you have any questions on today's presentation, please contact me at the email address shown below on the slide.
네, 큰 박수 부탁드립니다. 일본 국토교통성의 야수히로 유라노 과장님께서 이렇게 발표해 주셨고요. 하단에 있는 그 메일 주소로 혹시 궁금하신 부분이 있으시면은 별도로 문의를 주시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 이렇게 해서 두 번째 세션, 두 번째 발표를 바로 이어서 지체 없이 만나보도록 하겠습니다.
Next presentation is on direction for revision of the Seafarers Act of the RK. We have lawyer Kim Dong-in from the Seafarers Legal Forum. Please give him a big hand.
네, 반갑습니다.
Nice to meet you. I am lawyer Kim Dong-in. 25th of June is the day of the Seafarer, and we are having this meaningful event in line with the IMO Celebration Day. I extend my gratitude for all the organizing committee from the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries and all the participants. As I majored in maritime law, I would like to thank you all. Today, I'm going to present on legal suggestions for Korea Seafarers Act amendment. There is a time limit, so I summarized all of my suggestions and I gave you a separate handout. If you have any inquiries or questions, you may refer to the handout as well. So first is the legal suggestion for Korea Seafarers Act amendment. Do you have any mobile microphone that I can attach to my suit? Okay. Should I only use this microphone on stage, on the podium?
이렇게 돼야 됩니까? 지금 마우스가 잠깐만요. 네. 지금
The scope of today's discussion will be 4 points. So in the handouts, I included 5 points, including foreign sea workers issues. You know that if there is no seaman, no shipping, no seaman, no maritime company. This highlights the importance of shipping industry. And the labor relations of seafarers are changing fast here in Korea and in other countries as well. So there is a big gap between the Seafarers Act and the changing labor relations. And how to close that gap should be the direction of the revision to the Act. Well, the first thing that I want to mention is the proper formal legislation to protect working conditions of seafarers. Second, legislative measures to address the increase in foreign seafarers. 3, future improvement needed for seafarer accident compensation. And 4th, responsibility of the company subject to SAPA, Serious Accident Punishment Act. So I excluded step 2 because I wrote that in the handout. Do you want me to include it or not? Do you want me to include step 2 or not? Is it okay? I'll exclude it? Okay. So I skip step 2, which is on foreign seafarers. First is proper form of legislation to protect working conditions of seafarers. The Act needs to prescribe individual working conditions of seafarers. But we need more effective measures on wage, severance pay, and occupational accident, and so on. So for example, we have Minimum Wage Act and Industrial Accident Compensation Insurance Act. Like so, we need to have those kind of legal measures for seafarers as well to effectively ensure the compliance. We need to think of a proper legislative form. There can be various approach in terms of legislation. So I named it single source principle, mutatis mutandis principle, and dual source principle. So single source principle is to elaborate all the working conditions and legal aspects of that and delegate legislation to other government agencies. This is the current legal approach that we are taking. The second is mutatis mutandis principle. It is a good way to secure efficacy but weak in terms of seafarer protection and legal stability. But in this case, the single source principle is difficult to secure efficacy and effectiveness of the law. The second approach is mutatis mutandis principle is to apply the Minimum Wage Act and Industrial Accident Compensation Insurance Act to seafarers. This is the definition of mutatis mutandis principle. As the legal standards for ground workers apply the same to seafarers, we can secure effectiveness, but the characteristics of shipping industries is disregarded. And the interested parties of labor relations and shipping industry cannot tell whether the Standard Act applied to them or not. This shows that the second approach is weak in legal stability. Third is dual source principle. It is to apply the Labor Standard Act to seafarers, and in terms of individual working conditions, we can establish a separate law for that. So for example, Minimum Wage Act and Wage Claim Insurance Act should be established in this case. This is a good way to protect seafarers and enhance the legal stability, but there is a possibility of excessive legislation. We have around 59,000 seafarers who are subject to the Seafarers Act. So around 60,000 seafarers are subject to a separate law that is been enacted every time when the working conditions arise, so it can be a little bit excessive. So my suggestion is to take a dual source approach. We are surrounded by 3 oceans, and the ocean policy should be maintained stably. But when we talk about legislation, it is very rigid. Do you know well about the Seafarers Act? And we have various labor-related acts in Korea. For example, Contract Work Employee Act. Do you know whether those kind of acts apply to seafarers as well? As a lawyer myself, it is sometimes not sure whether those acts apply to this industry. So for the general public, it would be very difficult to know whether the Labor Standard Acts apply to seafarers. And therefore, even though the number of people being subject to the Seafarer Act is small in number, I believe that the second dual source approach is optimal for this industry. I studied Japanese legislation, and they take the dual source approach. However, For 60,000 seafarers, I'm not sure the National Assembly will agree on establishing separate laws for this small number. The Korean Seafarers Act applied to fishing vessels which is more than 20 tons. For those fishing vessels less than 20 tons, the Seafarers Act don't apply. And fishing vessels over 20 tons is only about 67,000. Out of 67,000 fishing vessels, only 28 vessels are more than 20 tons. Considering the characteristics of Korean fishing vessels, the characteristic is very clear. So we need to expand the scope of the Seafarers Act coverage to cover the fishing vessels as well. We will be able to clarify the labor relations of fishing vessels as well. When we talk about minimum wage, we need to establish a Seafarers Minimum Wage Act and Seafarer Insurance Compensation Act and systematically establish those kind of individual acts so that all employees in this field could understand the legal coverage they will be able to get. This is my suggestion. If we have to amend the Seafarers Act to every issue we face, then the Seafarers Act will become too broad and the labor relation will not be reflected in the Act. Because every time we face an issue, we need to amend the Seafarers Act. When we amend the Act, the government, which is the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, will have to establish the amended provisions. So when the MOF publish a bill on the amendment and give it to the National Assembly, I hope that the government take a dual source approach. So I skip the second part as mentioned. Next is legislative system for seafarer accident compensation. Accident compensation for seafarers need to focus on preventing any industrial accident. After the occurrence of accident, we need to give a swift and sufficient coverage. But in case of seafarers who are subject to the Seafarers Act, we have a different set of acts applied to different seafarers. In case of seafarers on deep sea, Seafarer Act apply. And for fishing vessel workers, the Seafarers apply. And for seafarers on board merchant vessels of 5 tons or over, the Seafarers Act apply. But for other fishing vessel workers, the Act on Accident Compensation Insurance for fisheries and fishing vessels apply. So the subject of providing the compensation is unclear. For some items, the Seafarers Act applies to fishing vessels, but in case of compensation, there is a separate act for fishing vessel compensation. So this is a legal issue that we face. This is the legal challenges we face. And this is my legal suggestion for accident compensation method and insurance acceptor for seafarers covered by the Seafarers Act. First is compensation method. When we provide compensation against accident, there is indirect and direct way. The direct method of compensation is compensation provided by the ship owner to seafarer. There is a possibility that the ship owner doesn't purchase an insurance scheme. So the law can mandate the ship owner to subscribe to an insurance scheme. And an indirect method is to mandate the ship owner to pay for insurance money, and the government or the public agency provide the compensation in case of an accident.
산업재해 보상보험금이 적용이 되지 않습니까?
In case of
근데
ground
이제
transportation,
사업자는 보험만
Industrial
가입하면
Accident Compensation Insurance Act
노동보험공사에
apply.
따라서 근로복지
So
기관이
that is
근로자들의
the
손해를
matters
제기하는
presided by the Ministry of Labor.
그걸 우리가 간접 보상의 방식이라고
This is what we call indirect method of
현재는
compensation.
산업법이 적용되는 지금
For those
산업재해
seafarers
경우에는
who are subject
직접
to the
보상을 하거든요.
Seafarers Act, the
선박
compensation
소유자가
method is
산업재해에
direct
대해서
compensation method.
요양보상,
So the
상습보상,
ship
장기보상,
owner
근로보상, 상대적으로
provides
보상하고 이렇게 돼 있고요.
compensation
이걸
benefits to
확보하기
seafarers
위해서
in case of
여러 가지
accident, including
보험에
funeral
가입하도록 되어
compensation.
있습니다.
And for
그런데
this,
이제 그렇게
the
되는 게
law
아니라
mandates the ship owner to buy
여기까지
or purchase an
시효가 되는
insurance.
법령상으로는 선언은
But
재보상을 못
when
받죠.
the
보험자는 자기가
compensation
입은 보험이
insurance become
계약 체결되지
obsolete, then there
않았다면
is no way that we can
체결된
provide
후에
compensation.
보험료를 납입하지 않아서 보험계약이
And
취소가
there
되더라도
is a case
보험자는
where
보험금을 지급할
the ship
필요가 없지
owner
않습니까?
doesn't pay their monthly
그런데
insurance
어떤
money and
경우에 선원 보호를 할 수
the
없는
insurance
위기질서
coverage
조건이
become
있습니다.
obsolete, and there is no way we can
그것은
guarantee the payment is
그들이
given
이제
to
직접
the
보상을
seafarers.
하면
And if
보험자들이
we
선주의
continue to
이사를 할 필요
follow the
없이
direct compensation method,
선원의 재해가 직무상 재해가 아닌 것 같아.
then the ship
하고
owner may
직접
arbitrarily
보상합니다.
decide that
그러면
the
선원의
accident is
입장에서
not because
보험은
of the
자,
work-related
보험자가
issue.
거짓을 했기 때문에 자기 사고가
As the ship
선원의
owner
재해라는
waived
이유로
the
선박을
coverage,
건너서 선박을 먼저 잡을 수 있어요.
then the seafarers there have
두 번째,
no way
손주를
to
필요로
get
하지 않고
compensation.
손주를 상대로 소송을
And
합니다.
seafarers
그렇게
can
되면
opt
이제
for
직접
filing a
보상의
lawsuit
방법에
against
있어서
ship owner, but it's
손주가 선원의 보험은 안 되면서 손주의 경우에
difficult to guarantee the payment of the ship owners. And there is a lot of ways they can waive their responsibility over seafarers in case of accident.
간접 보상을 하나 보험료는 어때요? 같죠.
Direct method and indirect
그런데
method,
선박 소유자의
for
입장에서
both
똑같은
ways, the
보험료인데
insurance money,
선원이
insurance
내
amount that
보상으로
the ship owner has to
세계에서
pay is the
상품화할
same.
수 있는 방안 플러스 선박
So we need
소유자가
to find a
선박을
way where we
비교되듯이
can
자기가
guarantee the
직접
compensation to
해결할 수 있는 기회를
seafarers and a
스스로
way
주어서는 안 되죠.
to
법적인
make
그런데
ship
이제
owner
현재
pay
그렇게 안
for
됩니다.
insurance, but the
그래서
current
이와
system
같은
doesn't
것들이
guarantee
있습니다.
that. So that's the problem that
그래서
we currently have.
현재 지금 산업법의 전개를 산업보험법을 제정해서
So we need to establish a seafarer compensation insurance act,
마찬가지로
just as the fishing vessel accident compensation insurance.
모든 것은
That's the way that we can mandate the ship owner to pay for insurance money and the country take the responsibility of paying out compensation benefits to seafarers.
업무를 지금 누가
If
하는
so,
것인가?
then the remaining question is to who should be responsible for paying the compensation benefits. Just as the other fields,
지금 어선원의 재보상에 대해서 온밑하고 수중앙에 있죠. 마찬가지로
the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries can consign the work to a public entity such as KSA,
손주도 동시에 보호할 수 있는
so that they can both protect the ship owner and seafarers at the same time.
예산이 엄청 따르겠지만
But this requires a lot of budget to be allocated to this field.
그래서 지금 다 같은 방식은
So changing the compensation method
단기간 내에
will be difficult to achieve in a short period of time due to the required budget.
필요할 수밖에 없을 텐데요.
Due to that limitation, we will have to maintain the current system for a while.
선원재해에
But there is another way.
소송 기준상으로 면책인과
From legal perspective,
제가 통계적인 데이터는 없는데
I don't have the statistical data with me today, but
일반 농사도
the private insurance company
무사도로 지금 돼 있어요.
can acquire
그래서 지금
the
오토바이스 같은 경우에는
seafarer compensation insurance.
많이 들것 같고
They have the right to do so.
근데
In case of coastal vessels, they get a discount for insurance, their insurance premium. I'll be brief then. So the private insurance company give a discount to coastal vessels. So the series clause is high. By amending the Seafarers Act, the coverage provided by the insurance, covered by the insurance can disappear. Industrial Accident Compensation Insurance Act enable workers to choose between disability benefits and survival compensation annuity. The annuity type is advantageous after 4.49 years when one gets disability lump sum. Then one gets disability lump sum. So for the seafarers as well, we need to give two options such as lump sum and annuity system, but as we have a direct compensation system, we cannot give them two options. There is no survival benefit option, so I think this has a legal issue. For enabling seafarers to get choose between disability benefits and survival compensation annuity, again, budget allocation is needed. And my suggestion is to have this option, and the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries will have to prepare for this. Next is responsibilities of maritime company managers based on Serious Accident Punishment Act or SAPA and legislative measures to prevent seafarers' accidents. The purpose of this act is to prevent further industrial accidents. Starting from 2024, the business with more than 5 employees will subject to this act. So when there is more than 5 crew, the shipping companies who have more than 5 crew will subject to SAPA starting from 2024. So we need to review the cases where we can be in violation of SEPA. If you see the obligations related to safety and health, it says that the company need to set up a safety and health measure and must establish a safety and health management system. If they violate the safety obligation, then penalty will be imposed. If you see the implementation provision, the SAPA stipulates the standards here to follow the Occupational Safety and Health Act. But that doesn't apply to fishing companies now. So for those businesses that subject to Seafarers Act, SAPA doesn't apply. So there will be no standard applying for Seafarers Act subjecting company. So I think that the National Assembly didn't review the seafarers and shipping companies that are subject to the Seafarers Act. And according to Maritime Safety Act, we need to have a safety and health management system, but that only applies to chemical tankers that is less than 500 tons. But for the remaining tankers and vessels, there is no legal guarantee for safety and health measures. So we need to clarify the safety and health provisions for the shipping industry as well. So there is a high possibility of shipping companies to be imposed the penalty when violating the safety and health obligations that is stipulated in Serious Accident Punishment Act. In order to guarantee the clear implementation of SAPA, we need to establish a standard for that. We need to clarify the provisions related to safety and health measures that apply to shipping industry. Actually, I have a lot to say from the legal perspective, but due to limitation of time, I have to summarize. I am a PhD holder in maritime law. The reason why I chose this field was that I had a past career working as a seafarer. At the time when I reviewed the Seafarers Act, there were a lot of loopholes in the current act, but 20 years have passed since then. Then I feel that a lot of amendment has been made. But as for the practicality and effectiveness of the act, there is still a lot to do. We need to study ILO and a lot of Supreme Court rulings related to this field, and the amendment of the Seafarers Act should reflect all that. So we need to think about ways to protect seafarers and to protect the further development of maritime companies at the same time. So that's why we need to think about the formalities of legislation and content. Thank you for listening.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you. We, lawyer Kim Dong-in mentioned a good point from his legal aspect. It was difficult to cover all during 10 minutes. So when we have next opportunity, we will spare 1 hour for your lecture. I think that would be very helpful for the listeners. Once again, please give him a big round of applause.
So he talked about various trends and directions forward related to the seafarers law. And we heard two presentations so far, and we will now move on to the panel discussion. Now I'd like to invite the panelists to the stage. Dr. Hwang Jin-hui from the KMI, and President Lee Sang-il from KMOU, and Professor Im Tae-yeon from Mokpo National Maritime University. Please come up to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Hwang Jin-hui from KMI, and I'm the moderator. And let me introduce the panelists first. We have President Lee Sang-il from KMOU, and Professor Im Tae-yeon from Mokpo National Maritime University. I think the presenter can go back to your seat, or are you going to stand there? Okay. Well, the time's actually already up for the discussion, but we cannot skip the discussion. So we will have to use up the break time, 10 minutes right now, and use 50 minutes break at the end of the event. So we are given 25 minutes. No, I'm really sorry about that.
말씀드렸습니다만은 이 시스템에서는 총체적인 방향은 첫 번째 야수히로 우라노
So we had two presentations, one provided by Yasuhiro Urano
관련돼서 발표를 해주시고 또 김동인 변호사님께서는
and lawyer Kim Dong-in gave a second presentation on Korea's Seafarers law. I think it was very meaningful.
여러 가지 이슈가 속하지만
There are various issues related to Seafarers Act,
관계가 생각을 합니다.
and I think it's a very serious issue.
문제가 상당히 심각하다고 이야기하고 특히 우수학생은
And especially securing talent, especially the maritime technician, is very important because we are seeing less and less applicants, and many seafarers are thinking that the wage attractiveness is decreasing. So HMM head visited the university, and these companies think that the wage level is pretty high, but students didn't think so. So I think there's a disparity between how they accept the situation. So there are issues like that. And these are the difficulties that we're faced with. And we'll have to think about why we are facing such issues. So there's increase in vessels for the last 10 years. So we have additional 15,000 vessels, especially the ones with large sizes. So even if we're seeing such demand, we are seeing less and less marine technicians. And in Europe, private sector is dealing with nurturing talents, and Myanmar and Vietnam seafarers are willing to apply for these European vessels, not really Korean vessels. That's why it's difficult to secure them, secure talents. We don't have increase in the number of training institutions, and the attractiveness of the job is decreasing. So in the first part, we had a pilot and a company leader to talk about the vision of the job, but at the same time, there are realistic issues. It's difficult for people to get to that position. So I think this seminar is really meaningful, and especially this session is focusing the Seafarers Act. We heard from Japan, we heard about Korea. So now I would like to ask two experts here today to share their insights on the directions for the Seafarers Act. So, President Lee Sang-il, can you give us a comment first? Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lee Sang-il from KMOU. So it's an honor for me to be here at the first Korea Seafarers Week. And I hope that there's improvement in the working conditions for seafarers. We heard from Japanese presenter, and I'd like to comment on that. Mr. Urano, your presentation was wonderful, and you talked about the aging of seafarers, and there's background issues, and the MLIT has been researching on that issue, and then the Act, the Seafarers Act was revised and then implemented. And labor management officer was designated, and he or she will analyze the seafarers' conditions to give measures for seafarers' working condition, and time card punching and more objective recording was established based on the Seafarers Act, and drills and the turnover time that was revised as well, and that could be included in the working hours. And lastly, there was a system ensuring the effectiveness of the Seafarers Act. So if this Seafarers Act work well, then I believe that it will contribute to the improvement of seafarers' working conditions. So the working hour scope that he explained was very similar to the Labor Act, but it's not yet included in the Seafarers Act in Korea. And establishing a systematic system for ship owners is agreeable. However, that may be too much of a cost and burden for ship owners, because that can be really burdensome, especially the certification cost and etc. So I believe that I'm concerned that ship owners may feel very burdened by this. And objective recording can be very helpful as well. And based on the record, if the seafarers can rest sufficiently, they can hire more seafarers. And if this becomes effective, then securing enough resting time for seafarers would be possible. According to Cardiff, many of the seafarers actually falsely record their working time because they're scared that they might not be hired again. So there are cases where this record is not correct. So according to the working time format, well, we have the law specifying the working hours for seafarers. However, it is not effective enough in Korea because of this reason. So I think it would be very helpful to make sure that such law is implemented. And if seafarers feel fatigue, it's closely related to the accident. According to a research, there was a vessel that experienced a wreckage, and the reason for that wreckage was, according to the US report, it was a lack of sleep of seafarers. So they slept only few hours in 2 days. So that led to such a big accident. And I believe that it's important to review working hours for seafarers, and we will have to consider improving that. And also, it's important to establish a culture where seafarers record their working hours correctly. But if we don't have the right system, that would be very difficult. And there are many cases where seafarers do not get enough resting times. So we will have to consider that and secure enough seafarers for them. And as you know, seafarers are an important part of navigation, and their fatigue can lead to big accidents. So mental and physical health of seafarers are important. So once again, I would like to wish you your health and success. Thank you very much.
감사합니다.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. He added his comment on the presentation of Mr. Yasuhiro Urano and mentioned his suggestion for crew change. The crew change is not reflected in the Seafarers Act, and he recommended to reflect that. And he mentioned that seafarers' working hours not documented and correctly, and the problems related to fatigue seafarers. He mentioned about the example of the ship Valdez, shipwrecked Valdez. Thank you for your discussion. Next, I would like to invite Professor Im Chae-hyun. I am Im Chae-hyun from Mokpo Maritime University. I'm in charge of Seafarer Policy Institute, so that's why I am here. We are having the first Korea Seafarers event, and I am very delighted to participate in it. I could see that many of the organizing committee people have made efforts for this. I think that it will be a lot to cover. It is difficult for us to have in-depth discussion related to this, so I'll briefly touch upon the overview. Lawyer Kim have made his legal suggestion for the Seafarers Act amendment. He has an ample experience in terms of Seafarers Act lawsuit and so on, so there is not much to add on. So if we read the handout that lawyer Kim gave to us, I agree every comment that he made. And he suggested that additional measures are needed, and accident compensation insurance is needed. From the company's perspective, the accident compensation can be different from what the seafarers think. So it is very difficult to make any comment that apply to both. But when it comes to accident compensation, I agree to lawyer Kim's point that there should be an adjustment made to the accident compensation system. And he mentioned that there is cases where seafarers cannot get accident compensation. And I personally did a review on that as well. And the issue is very controversial, so I don't want to touch upon those controversial aspects. As for accident compensation, unlike the ground workers, the social security aspect for seafarers is very weak. seafarers face a lot of difficulty in terms of accident compensation because many vessels, which is less than 3 tons, it is very difficult for the fishing vessel to subscribe to an insurance scheme. We need to strengthen the social security aspect, such as establishing the Seafarer Accident Compensation Act, and I fully agree that we need a public agency which will be in charge of this issue. And we have many private insurance companies, but there will be a lot of legal issues that we need to solve in terms of accident compensation. But we need to speak on behalf of the seafarers so that we can expedite and facilitate the process of getting the compensation in case of an accident. By establishing an compensation insurance act, a public agency should step in to support the process. The Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries have spent a lot of time delivering this. So I think it is a good idea to establish a public agency which will be in charge of this, or assigning a current public agency to take the task so that we can cover the legal loophole that we currently have in terms of accident compensation. In case of Labor and Welfare Center, they work for accident compensation mainly, but if we establish another public agency for this, then I hope that they will work not only for the accident compensation, but also to improve the working conditions of seafarers. That's my suggestion. And lawyer Kim mentioned the aspect related to SEPA. I think the current situation related to Serious Accident Punishment Act is kind of in chaos. There is no clear provisions related to the applicability to the shipping industry. And it's not clear which provision will apply to our industry. From this aspect, I know that there is an effort to clarify the legal applicability of SEPA, but we need to come up with solutions quickly. Last point that I want to mention is kind of vague, but as you know, the Gen Z generation is rising nowadays. But from their perspective, many speakers mentioned that there's a big gap between us and them. I'm working in the university, but I heard that many designated training centers face the same difficulty because there is no new students who want to study this field. We are discussing about seafarer policy, but if there is no new talent attracted in this field, then it would be very difficult to sustain this industry, and will be no need to discuss the policy approach. I hope that the industry, the government, and academia will realize the seriousness of having no new talent in this field and give institutional support such as giving more vacation period, increasing their wage, and improving their welfare, not just the policy approach. We need to give a clearer vision of this industry to the next generation maritime professionals. It is kind of abstract, but we need to come up with a clear way to show the vision to the next generation. When I do career counseling with my students, I feel that nowadays students feel differently than us. So we need to fundamentally think about the ways to give hope to the next generation professionals in this field. So we need to make this field attractive to the new talent. Taking this opportunity, I would like to call for your effort for that. This is it for me. Thank you. Professor Lim, thank you. You've mentioned the Seafarers Accident Compensation Insurance Act, the necessity for that, and ways to strengthen social security aspect of the act. And you suggested to establish a government agency which will be in charge of accident compensation and to assign welfare improvement task to the potential agency. And I could feel that you agreed to the points raised by lawyer Kim in his presentation. And you requested for expedited approach. And thus, you suggested fundamental problems and with regard to seafarer policy, and I fully agree with you. We have 7 minutes left. Please understand that there will be no break time after this. I would like to take comments or feedback from the floor. If you have one, please raise your hand. Please be brief while posing question. If you have any question to the panelists on stage or to the speakers, then please raise your hand. No? The man over there. Please pass him the microphone. Please identify yourself and then ask question. Good afternoon. I'm from HMM. I'm the chairman of labor union at HMM. I am the leader of the labor union at HMM. I'm working hard to improve the working conditions of seafarers at our company. While rallying for the improvement, we see a lot of loophole in the current act. I think the Seafarers Act is not for seafarers, it's rather for ship owners, so I call it the Ship Owners Act. So the legal suggestion made through the presentation, I think it's all good. But the labor union is making a lot of requests to be reflected in the Seafarers Act, but I'm not sure whether the government is listening to us and what kind of efforts that the academia is making to accept our requests. So the efforts that we're making, I think the Vice Minister, while delivering his congratulatory remarks, mentioned about the government direction in this field. I was impressed by the opening remark. And he also touched upon the point that we wanted to reflect during the Vice Minister congratulatory speech. He mentioned that there will be a policy support with regard to life cycle, to better the life cycle of seafarers and to improve the working conditions of seafarers. So from that aspect, we will be able to improve the seafarers' condition if so. And during the last session, which is session 3, we have Director for Seafarer Policy here from the MOF, so we will be able to hear from him after the session 3. You didn't ask any practical question to the panelists on stage. If Mr. Lee, if you have any comment to make related to the question, then please answer. So within a short period of time, I think it is really difficult to cover all the aspects of the Seafarers Act. So regarding the Seafarers issue, we need to review this from the government, industry, and academia perspective. The legal provisions are kind of unclear. The Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries will come up with the policy direction which will be more clear. I hope that the next amendment to the Seafarers Act will be more practical. While summing up, as a panelist and as a moderator, I would like to add on my comments. While studying this field, I faced a lot of challenges. The direction for the seafarers policy can be summarized into two. First, seafarers should be a good job. So far, there was a policy campaign to improve the perception on seafaring and making it into a decent job. And second, we need to nurture quality maritime technician, and we need to set a right direction for this. This should be from the demand side. I think those two can summarize the current policy direction that we need. I think we are at a new stage. So the current governance system where we rely on low wage will be difficult to sustain this industry. We need to improve the productivity of shipping and decrease the rate of accident so that the company could sustain their business in going forward. If we cannot achieve that, then I'm not sure whether the company can be promising still in the future. In the academia, many professors are delivering good lectures in this that reflect the industry, but we need to address all the complaints from the field. The retraining program is conducted in the training institute, and we need to prepare for the autonomous vessel era, and we need to give proper education to that. I know we are changing in the right direction, but we need to expedite our efforts. The government need to set a clear direction for seafarer policy. We have discussed that during our event, and Vice Minister also covered this point during his congratulatory remark. But so far, the policy wasn't sufficient to cover all our complaints, so we need to review that. And the government will have to reflect our concerns and consider how to attract talent, what kind of support will be given until when, and the budget allocated for that. And for the private sector, we need to consider whether it is sufficient to sustain the current system where we only use small number of Korean seafarers and employ a lot of foreign seafarers. There is no public entity in charge of training maritime technicians. The private sector take on that responsibility. But Korean Training Institute train Korean maritime professionals, but still after nurturing them, we hired a lot of foreign seafarers because of their low wage. We need to make seafaring into a stable and decent job to open up a new future for this fishing and shipping industry. I hope that the labor relations in this field could change for better. If there is no decision made or compromise made between labor and management, then the problem will sustain. I know that a lot of labor union people are here with us today, and I think we need to agree on the direction to go forward. So this is the end of the panel discussion for session 2. Thank you for listening.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you.
오늘 수요 최고의 신 이상임
Let's
원장님께서는
give
이제
Mr. Lee and Professor Lim
다시 한번
and
뜨거운
Dr. Hwang a big round of applause. This is the end of session 2, where we discussed the policy direction for seafarers. We didn't have enough time to cover all. During the session, we discussed the legal suggestions for the Seafarers Act. As we are running behind our schedule, we will skip the break time and have session 3. For session 3, we have foreign speakers joining online. As we are running behind our schedule, they had to wait for a long time. Let's begin session 3, which will discuss about safety and health promotion of seafarers. We have 2 presentations, 10 minutes for each. And after the presentation, we are going to have panel discussion with 3 panelists for 25 minutes. We will expedite the process so that we can end on time. Let's begin the session 3. During this session, we are going to discuss about safety and health promotion of seafarers.
네, 세션 첫 번째 발표는
So the first presentation is on seafarers' well-being, the regulator's review, and we have Julie Carton connected us through Zoom. Hello? Do you hear me well?
아직 스피커가 연결이 안 된 것 같은데. 소리가 아직 안 나오고 있죠? 소리가 나오는지만 확인하고 바로 시작하도록 하겠습니다.
Let me just check if the sound is coming out. Hello?
Good afternoon to you all, and thank you for inviting me to speak to your conference today.
네, 잘 들립니다. 그럼 지금부터 바로
We hear you very well, so we will get started now. Please give her a big round of applause.
Good afternoon. I work for the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, the MCA, which is the regulator for UK ships and the competent authority for implementing the Maritime Labour Convention, among other things. So my presentation is about seafarer wellbeing and specifically looking at it from the regulator's point of view. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why the regulator will be interested in wellbeing, seafarer wellbeing, and then what the UK is doing to address that. Seafarers have always been recognised as a vulnerable group requiring particular protection. For example, in Europe, for example, in Europe, we had regulations dating back from 1260, which looked at requiring care to be provided for sick seafarers when they were away from home. So this isn't a new concept. In the modern era, we have the international standards that you will know in the form of the specific maritime conventions from the International Labour Organization. But in talking about seafarer wellbeing, we're not just thinking about compliance with minimum rules. You may have heard of the Seafarers Happiness Index, which is run by the Seafarers charity, the Mission to Seafarers. This is based on a quarterly survey of thousands of seafarers across the world on matters affecting their happiness and well-being. It includes food on board, workload, shore leave. It's perhaps not surprising that the index has dropped significantly over the last 2 years, from hovering between 6 and 6.5 out of 10. In Q2 of 22, the index stands at 5.85, which is the lowest it's been for 8 years. But why does it matter? And why would a regulator need to be concerned about that? Well-being is affected by so many things, not in the control of the regulator or even in the control of the ship owner. However, many of the things that, according to the index, have a real impact on seafarer well-being are things that are covered by regulation. So why would anyone be worried? Why do we need to be worried about seafarer well-being? Well, apart from the moral obligation to take care of people in our charge, a well crew is likely to be a safer crew. Ensuring the engagement of crew is a key element in developing a safety culture. If seafarers know they will be listened to, that they won't be blamed for things outside their control, that they will be looked after if things go wrong, they're more likely to feel invested in the ship and the company, take their responsibilities seriously, and proactively address safety issues. But if seafarers are unwell, that leads to increased stress, which decreases their operational and safety performance. And it can also lead to long-term health problems and mental and emotional issues. Then there's a shortage of qualified, experienced seafarers in some sectors. So that's a good reason to make the sector attractive as a career to aid recruitment and retention of seafarers. And finally, there's an increasing awareness in society as a whole of the importance of addressing mental health and well-being issues. So much for well-being generally, but why should a regulator be interested in something that's so difficult to regulate and probably impossible to enforce? Well, many of our international obligations are related to seafarer well-being. In particular, the Maritime Labour Convention contains provisions on hours of work, repatriation, food and catering, medical care, shore leave, and others. And Standard A 4.1 talks about health promotion as well as medical care. And Standard A 4.3 on health and safety requires the competent authority to promote health and safety messages, not just safety. So providing guidance in these areas, regulators can support ship owners in their duty of care and also help seafarers to take responsibility for their own well-being. UK policy is that as far as practicable, seafarers should have the same level of protection as workers ashore. So we keep in touch with the standards and policies being promoted by the UK's Health and Safety Executive, who regulate the world of work ashore. The focus of the HSE is changing. They have a policy of helping Britain work well, which includes preventing ill health at work. And finally, the UK believes that to be a quality flag doesn't just mean having new ships with the latest technology and people with good qualifications, but also less measurable benefits, going beyond the minimum international requirements and promoting the well-being of seafarers. So what do we do in these areas? I'm just going to talk about a few of the areas of the Maritime Labour Convention, health and safety and well-being at sea. So on medical certification, well, of course, we have the rules on seafarer medical examinations. We have the fitness standards that are applied. We also provide guidance and training to our approved doctors about the facilities that must be provided at the clinics, advice they can give to seafarers before they attend their medical examination, providing chaperones for those who would like it for the examination, and also to ensure consistent decision-making, which reduces anxiety and stress among the seafarers. And because we want to keep seafarers working at sea where it's possible to do that safely, the guidance to our approved doctors provides the opportunity to set targets for improving health, for example, weight loss targets. Hours of work and annual leave and fatigue. I've heard other speakers mention that already today. We have a long running policy at the NCA to address the problem of fatigue, which has both immediate safety impacts and also long-term health impacts. And our policy has three elements. The first is strict enforcement of current rules. And that can be time consuming, but it's important to go further than simply checking the hours of rest records. It needs to be cross-checked with the deck log and the official logbook to ensure consistency. And we're committed to work to improve the international regulation in this area, although so far it has to be said we have made little progress on that at the IMO. In the meantime, we continue to work to build up the evidence base around the need for change. And so we've supported research projects, the EU Horizon project, Martha, and we've done some additional research of our own on watchkeeping models. And the third element of our fatigue policy is education, and we publish guidance on the importance of the impact of fatigue on seafarers, how to avoid or manage fatigue, and also stressing the importance of accurate record keeping. crew accommodation, food and catering will also affect seafarer wellbeing. And of course, we have our regulations. But as regards recreation, which is largely guidance in the Maritime Labour Convention, we have taken some additional steps. So we've supported an ISWAN project to investigate the main barriers to social interaction on board ships and to provide guidance to shipping companies and seafarers to overcome those barriers. We've, in order to support communications for seafarers during the lockdown, the COVID lockdown, the UK government provided MiFi units in some ports to help seafarers make contact with their families. On food and catering, we have the rules, obviously, on provision of sufficient food, and we've just had the recent MLC amendment adopted to improve that guidance, to strengthen those requirements. We also provide guidance on allergies and how to create diets to support people working shifts, working on shifts. On health and safety, as well as our regulations and guidance, and we have a lot of those, we have the Code of Safe Working Practices for Merchant Seafarers, which includes provisions includes a chapter about living on board and the sort of stresses and that can occur. And that code is kept under review by a tripartite working group so that we update it each year. And at the moment, we're just embarking on a project to completely revise it to try and improve its accessibility. It's very long and wordy, and we want to try and make it more accessible. And we run campaigns on particular areas of concern. So in recent years, we've run campaigns about dangerously weighted heaving lines and entry into enclosed spaces. And then alongside the regulations, we have guidance on how other issues that you can't regulate can affect safety. So things like complacency and situational awareness and distractions. And we have a marine guidance note called The Deadly Dozen that looks at some of those. And then in 2019, I think it was, 2020, we published a guide called Wellbeing at Sea. In fact, two guides, one for organisations and one for seafarers. And they're available from our official publisher, which look at all sorts of aspects of wellbeing at sea. And we're about to launch a tool to support companies in applying that guidance in practice on board ships. And then there are other issues. Mental health, for example, we have added an element on mental health awareness to the STCW Personal Safety and Social Responsibility course, which is mandatory for all joining the industry. And there's also a non-mandatory course, which is available for those wishing to support crew members. On bullying and harassment, well, we had the amendment, the 2016 amendment to the Maritime Labour Convention, which provided guidance on preventing bullying and harassment. And our guide on seafarer employment agreements makes reference to the codes of practice and to the code on and promotes the ICS ITF code on elimination of bullying and harassment. And we've identified bullying and harassment as a potential health and safety issue in our Code of Safe Working Practices. And it was good to see the support for the resolution adopted by the fourth meeting of the Special Tripartite Committee on the Maritime Labour Convention recently, which called for the issue of particularly sexual assault and harassment to be the subject of further discussion at the joint IMO-ILO Committee on the Human Element. So of course, wellbeing can't be provided by regulators or by ship owners and employers. It's a joint responsibility and requires cooperation between employers, owners, and seafarers. But government can provide a regulatory framework supported by guidance, which not only can set a baseline for decent work, but encourage engagement with a wide range of issues affecting seafarer wellbeing. And as I've said, seafarer wellbeing contributes to safety and efficiency on board. Society increasingly expects it to be part and parcel of what employers and businesses do. People actively seek out organisations that take wellbeing seriously. So seafarer wellbeing contributes to attracting people to the industry and keeping them there. So the MCA will continue to work to improve our understanding and to work with both sides of the industry to see how it can be applied in practice. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. 여러분 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Please give her a big round of applause. So we had a presenter joining us through Zoom from UK, and that was on seafarers' welfare from the regulator's view. And we will move on to the second presentation.
Let's move on to the next presentation, which is on the evolution of Norway's seafarer administration. For this, we have Mr. Hakon Storhag via video from Norwegian Maritime Authority.
Professor Jung and the organizers of this important event for inviting me to make a presentation about the evolution of Norway's seafarer administration. Precisely, I will talk about what changes the MLC 2006 have brought about in Norway in terms of legislation and the organization of the seafarer administration. So to do that, I will give a short history of that seafarer legislation and certain developments in the shipping industry in Norway and an overview of Norwegian seafarer administration. I call this the mega trends. I think probably also Korean shipping has experienced these developments in the 1970s and 1980s. 1970s, so of course a lot of crises with the oil crisis in the early 70s, making the price of oil shoot up, which meant transporting oil became more expensive, and also that led to certain technological developments with regard to automation, the point of which was to run ships more efficiently. And of course, the consequence for seafarers was there wasn't need for as many of them, but they had to be better qualified. An important legislative development came in 1975, which really the main point of it was to change the employment status of seafarers from being employed on individual ships to being employed by the shipping companies. So in effect, this is really tied to what I mentioned earlier as seafarers as casual labor, i.e. jumping from ship to ship, don't provide the stable workforce and qualified workforce you do need for operating more advanced ships. And then, of course, the 1980s continued seeing, especially the Norwegian flag, becoming less competitive, which meant that Norwegian ship owners had to find ways of becoming more profitable. And one of those ways was to flag out their ships to other registers, such as Liberia and Panama and other flags. So basically the government felt something drastic had to be done, and that was really the introduction of the Norwegian International Ship Register in 1987, supported by an act, basically. This did stem the outflow of Norwegian ships. The main reform was really to allow foreign seafarers resident in other countries to serve on board Norwegian ships at local wage rates. So that, of course, led to still many Norwegian seafarers lost their employment, and many left the seafaring workforce for good. So the Norwegian Seafarer Administration until the late 1980s was really reflective of a large industry, many ships, many seafarers, and was really the government providing quite an extensive infrastructure to support Norwegian shipping. So this was really the case in the entire post-World War II era, that shipping became one of the most important industries in Norway. So basically, there was a tripartite structure of Norwegian Seafarer Administration. You had the Directorate for Seamen, which really dealt with the employment relationships governed through the Seamen's Act. You had the Norwegian Maritime Directorate, which was responsible for seafarer training and certification through the STCW Convention. And then you had the Welfare Service for Seafarers, which was not only represented in Norway, but also in many foreign ports and on all continents where Norwegian shipping was present. They were organizing social and cultural activities for seafarers on Norwegian ships around the world. And I have included the pension insurance for seamen, although I won't be speaking too much about that. That really isn't the central issue with regard to the MLC. Something that is central is, of course, recruitment and placement of seafarers. And that was really also a public responsibility and had been so for a long time. And again, this shows how important shipping was to the Norwegian economy, that the government was willing to provide an extensive infrastructure to support it. So with those developments I have mentioned with regard to the reduction in the Norwegian fleet and also the reduction of the number of Norwegian seafarers, something really had to be done to reflect that new situation, and also an issue that had been growing was the fragmented nature of the Seafarer Administration, and the three agencies weren't really working together that well. So something had to be done. So in the 1990s, basically the Directorate for Seamen and the Welfare Service were discontinued, and their functions and responsibilities were transferred mostly to the Norwegian Maritime Directorate. At least what we're interested in this context, in the MLC context. So the seafarer offices that recruited and placed seafarers, they ceased as a separate entity and became part of the public employment offices available to all workers. And then again, the pension insurance scheme for seamen continues to this day as more or less an exception to the rule that we had to reform our seafarer administration. So most special arrangements for seafarers that had been developed had been over many years, like taxation, social security, etc., became really part of the general legislation applying to all workers, with some special adaptations that were needed. So this reform, of course, solved some issues and was a step in the right direction. However, there were some difficulties and problems. We lost, basically, the Central Seafarer Register. It was quite an extensive register of seafarers, recording quite a few data on each seafarer, from sea service to acquiring of social security rights and all this. Furthermore, we had a system whereby before you signed on to a ship, your employment contract, your certificates of competency, medical certificates had to be checked by either the Public Seafarer Employment Office in Norway or by a Norwegian consulate abroad. And clearly that had now really become more of an administrative burden, a mere formality. And so this went on for a few years, but it still was on the books for reform as well. And of course, inspection of labor conditions, despite several ILO conventions, for example, 147 and 180, the Seafarer Administration, i.e. the Norwegian Maritime Directorate by this time, did not really have in place a proper system of inspection of labor conditions. Again, of course, at this time there was no certificate available, so this is one of the reasons why there wasn't really a proper system in place. So the MLC 2006 gave us the opportunity to develop a new Ship Labor Act based largely on the MLC, and it clearly states that the ISM company has the overall responsibility for all seafarers on board, even if they are employed by a different company. So this, for example, this joint and several liability that we have mentioned on several occasions, this was a very important reform. And the pre-signing on check that I mentioned, that was abolished because we felt that it being replaced by the system required by the MLC with regard to inspections would actually do the job much better than we had previously. And furthermore, of course, all inspectors now receive specific training in labor inspection, and the MLC and the national legislation implementing the convention. So, and then the responsibility of the ship owner has been clearly identified. So that is to ensure that the requirements of the MLC code are implemented on board. And of course, which also must be documented in a proper way. The NMA then inspects conditions on board, but of course, we also have delegated authority to recognized organizations. In Norway's case, it's mostly and mainly the Norske Veritas to issue and renew maritime labor certificates. So we follow basically the model of delegation that we have in the RO code of the IMO. So, in conclusion, seafarers' rights and duties of the MLC had already largely been regulated in Norwegian legislation, and the convention didn't present much that was new on this issue. So the main effect of the MLC in Norway was really to strengthen the administration's role in inspections, and I could also add in issuing sanctions in case of there being found deficiencies on board. And of course, it also has strengthened port state control. There's no doubt about that. And the other main effect was to clarify the role and responsibilities of the ship owner in Norwegian legislation. And that was something that had been developed over some time, but it hadn't really reached the final stage of development until the MLC was adopted, because until then it was mainly something that Norway had developed, but when the MLC came into force, it was in fact becoming an international requirement to have it this way. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention.
네, 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
Please give him a big round of applause. So we have concluded the second presentation of session 3. Once again, we are having a very good presentation. As we are running behind our schedule, it's almost 5:20. All the students who are here need to take their bus at 5:30. So let dismiss all the high school students here to take their bus. We have one more session prepared, which is session 3 panel discussion. As we have organized seats on stage, I would like to invite our panelists. Moderator will be Mr. Ho-seok Lee from Busan National University, and Professor Jeon Young-woo, Dr. Kim Myung-jun will be our panelists. First, I would like to introduce you Mr. Lee Ho-seok from Busan National University, and Professor Jeon Young-woo from Korea Maritime and Oceans University, and Dr. Kim Myung-jun from Korea Occupational Safety and Health Agency.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Lee Ho-seok, and it's an honor to be here today. I'm the moderator in the third session, and I'm the vice president of Transdisciplinary Institute of Medicine and Advanced Technology at Busan National University. We had two presenters before us. Thank you so much. That was really helpful. And their presentation was on the seafarers' health and regulation. We have two panelists, Professor Jeon Young-woo and Dr. Kim Myung-jun, and we will talk about how to promote the health and safety of seafarers. First, I would like to ask Mr. Kim Myung-jun to give comments. Ladies and gentlemen, good to see you today. My name is Kim Myung-jun from Korea Occupational Safety and Health Agency. I didn't know that we will talk about the Work Criteria Act and the Severe Disaster Act because our department deals with such criteria, and we're very sensitive about such act, especially the Severe Accident Act. I give a lot of lectures on that because many of the stakeholders are confused about the new law. So recently there was interpretation booklet published on December 17th, and I was reading through the interpretation, and all the regulations except the health and education will be alleviated. So I believe the health and safety is the trend. I looked through the presentations in advance by the previous two presenters, and they talked about the importance of clarification. And the Industrial Safety Act is targeting the workers on land. And since we're talking about Seafarers Act, I looked through these regulations, and I think it was very similar because there are differences, but there are many similarities to the Industrial Safety Act. Industrial Safety Act was enacted in 1981. In 2018, one seafarer died, and then the act was revised because of that. And the Severe Accident Act includes everything, entrustment and service, so it includes all the workers. The most important thing in the act is the platform workers or the dispatched workers, etc. So the responsibility, where the responsibility lies, we need to clarify that. That's really important. So if one person dies, then we will have to clarify who the victim is, who the plaintiff is. It's really hard to define these stakeholders. And if we cannot clarify this, then it is difficult to proceed with the lawsuit. So let's say we have 100 people, and if one person is responsible, that is clear enough. And Vessel Safety Act, if you look at the Industrial Safety Act, there are some exceptions. So for the vessels that are subject to the Vessel Safety Act, that is not subject to the Industrial Safety Act. So there are exceptions. This complicates acts and laws and regulations. And the regulations related to health and safety, we have to minimize chaos and confusion. So no law aims to punish people. Well, we are trying to prevent accidents from happening with the regulations, not to punish people. Therefore, if there's a death, and in 2021, 828 people died, and more than 10% of them are foreigners. My hometown is an island, and many of the workers were foreigners. Many of the workers are foreigners there. So what we are concerned about is similar to what you have talked about. So let me conclude what I would like to say. So maybe large companies are possible to implement many of the regulations, but with small vessels, it can be very burdensome and difficult. So what I'd like to say is that not the central government cannot do this alone. Local governments and the ship owners associations, we will have to pool our wisdom and create association including all relevant agencies and organizations. We'll have to figure out how many foreign workers we have, a percentage of them, and if we have such research in advance, then we will be able to establish an effective system. Thank you very much.
Our panelists mentioned about the Vessel Safety Act and the employment of foreign seafarers. Next, we we have Professor Kim, who retired from KMOU, Professor Chun from KMOU. Thank you for organizing this event. I would like to thank the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries and the Seafarer Welfare Center. So far, we had presentation from Julie Carton and Hakon Stornhold from Norway. I would like to thank the two speakers. It was very impressive to hear about Norwegian seafarer administration. Mr. Hakon introduced us about the evolution in the field of Norwegian seafarer administration and mentioned that Norway Maritime Office has been assigned with the increased responsibility over administering seafarer issues. And with the reform in their legislation, they impose stronger responsibility of ship owners. I sympathize with such step. I could see that in foreign countries, they're not just staying complacent at establishing the regulations related to seafarers. They are actively developing a timely policy and introducing enforcement decree related to that. It was very impressive to see such active policy support. I think that's the good way to enhance the efficiency of seafarer administrative support and make the industry more attractive. I think for this point, we need to learn from them. The panel discussion theme is the safety and health of seafarers. I think what we lack in terms of seafarer administration is safety and health. So far, Korea underlooked the need for strengthening safety and health of workers. The Korean Constitution stipulates the need to secure right to work. But the right to work not only mention the right to work literally, but also cover the fact that safety and health should be covered. Rights for safety is not stipulated in the Constitution, but the National Assembly is currently discussing about including safety rights in the constitutional reform. So far, we regarded seafarers' work as something very unique and exceptional because of the dangers of their working condition and loneliness they face working away from their family. And I think we need to pay more attention and closer attention to the safety and health of seafarers and make administrative and policy efforts to guarantee that. We need to assess the safety and health issue of Korea, but we don't have enough time, so I'll be brief. There is high casualty rate here in Korea. As compared to a better player, we have 7 times more accident rates here. So we need more efforts to enhance safety. By reflecting the MLC, we introduced legislation related to that. But unlike the UK, there is no clear regulations established in line with the MLC 2006 or MLC conventions. So we need more efforts to clarify the exact regulations that reflect the MLC. We expect the government announcement to be made this year. But without that, it is very difficult to guarantee the effectiveness of the legislation. And there is a move to reform the Seafarers Act. And I think it is a very positive approach. And I suggest that we have to establish a separate act on enhancing the safety and health of seafarers. And by this, we will be able to be allocated with a government budget for this field. After adopting and ratifying the Maritime Labour Convention, 10 years have passed. But there is only 50 people who are doing labor inspection on board. In case of Norway, they're making a lot of efforts to practically apply the MLC 2006, and by learning from them, we need to also have a practical measures to mandate this. We need to raise a safety and health audit inspector. We need to analyze the statistical data related to shipping accidents. The government policy is there to protect the industry workers, but the regulation isn't clear, so that's why it is so difficult to improve the current situation. As there is no analysis being made, it is difficult to assess the current situation. I suggest that there should be a national statistics and analysis in the current situation. The Article 81 of the Seafarers Act has not been implemented. This is a serious issue in terms of safety and health of seafarers. We have accident inspection system for shipping accident, but what is taking place in real world is different. That is being carried out by the ship owner, but we need to clarify who should be responsible for the accident inspection. I briefly touched upon this, but the Seafarers Act doesn't apply on safety and health. The safety and health issue is being discussed at the competent authority and assigned the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries to be in charge of this. So as for the maritime accident and safety and health, that should be comprehensively audited by the competent authority. We have Safety and Health Public Agency and Research Institute for other fields of profession, but we don't have any specialized agency in charge of this. I think as we have the Industrial Accident Prevention Agency, I think the Ministry of Oceans and Fishery can assign them to take the work while operating vessels. There is no clear R&R with regard to safety and health. So for serious accidents, industrial accidents, there should be a clear R&R stipulated, but we don't have it. The ship management companies, through ISM code, it seems that they're doing this because ISM stipulates that we need to have a systematic approach. So related to this issue, when there's an actual accident, the responsibility for safety and health should be taken by ship owner. And the ship management company just assists the ship owner in addressing the ship accident. Unlike the past, the MLC
어떤 컴퍼니를 선박 소유자로 이렇게 이제 위치시켰다는 때문에
requested ship management company to take the responsibility of addressing the accident, unlike what's really taking place. So the issue became very complex. There is no theoretical approach to this. I think the ship management company can take on the responsibility, but fundamentally, the ship owner should take the full responsibility. Lastly,
거기다 왜 이제 선원은
so
도입을
far,
사각지대
seafarers were
되고 있습니다. 이런 문제
overlooked.
때문에 12년 전부터 이제
From 12 years ago, we have done a lot of research to better the condition. At Busan National University, they launched a program. Only 10% of the Korean ships are seeing the benefits of the program, which is an online medical service provided to ship seafarers. I hope that this will be expanded to cover the entire industry. We need additional policy support, and we need to think about the medical insurance. And we need to set it a priority for the medical coverage. By addressing this issue, I hope that we could discuss the well-being of seafarers just as the United Kingdom. This is it for me. So Professor Chun has spent a lot of his time researching about seafarer safety, and thank you for sharing your comments. As mentioned, Busan National University Hospital, in sponsorship by the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, we have a program that has been led for 10 years. Like, as of last year, 120 merchant vessels were designated for this program, and 90% and over was merchant ships. And we are providing medical services for more vessels. According to our survey, the satisfaction rate is very good. I think we are introducing this program at a very meaningful time to improve the safety and health of seafarers. As Professor Chun mentioned, I hope that our program can be expanded to cover more. I hope everyone here and online participants could pay more interest and contribute to improving the safety and health of seafarers. When we talk about safety and health issues, as our speaker Julie Corton mentioned, we are talking about safety and health issues, but we need to think about well-being and welfare. And institutional support should be given for the welfare and well-being issues as well. I think we should follow suit. I am very delighted and honored to participate in this meaningful event. I hope that this venue will contribute to the seafarers and improve their safety. I would like to thank the two panelists on stage and for the participants for listening. This is the end for me. And thank you. Please give them a big round of applause. Once again, it was Professor Chun, Dr. Kim, and moderator Chairman Lee. So thank you for joining us till the end. And a lot of participants are joining online. I would like to thank all of you for listening through. During this event, we are discussing about seafarers who are the key players, and I hope health and happiness for all of you. Thank you for participating at the first Korea Seafarers Week ceremony. I am MC 박은경. Thank you.
바다로 나아가는 선원들의 꿈과 희망. 한국선원복지고용센터가 함께하겠습니다. 한국선원복지고용센터는 고용 안정과 복지 증진을 통해 선원의 행복한 삶을 지원하는 기관으로 2001년 6월 29일에 설립되었습니다. 센터는 부산 본부를 중심으로 부산 남항사무소와 포항, 제주,